Hey.
What's going on, guys? Welcome into Monsters of the Madhouse. We are so happy to have you along with us tonight. Chicago Sports Podcast. I'm Matt Cooper, along tonight with Dustin Jones. Dustin, we were just talking about this a second ago. I think this is the first time me and you've been together on a show.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to work with you. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've been admiring your work from afar. Let's get into it.
Thanks, man. I like the Mike Singletary jersey in the back too. We could talk about the Cubs one, but then we'll go off track here. We don't want
Let's not talk about any Sox ones though.
to. By the way, I'm going to talk about that later, guys, because I'm actually going to watch them this weekend. Believe it or not, I told my girlfriend, I was like, should I cancel my ticket or not? But anyway, um, Brandon, we got Brandon Duplessis in here. Brandon, it's good to see you, man. I think it's been a while since we've done a show together too. It's been probably about a month or so.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks, Matt, for sure. Good to
Yeah,
see you,
man.
man.
Good to see you too. We got all of our Bears stuff on. I do have my White Sox hat on, but I got my Bears at heart. Bears at heart. So, well, welcome in, guys. You guys can follow us along on our YouTube channel. You can like and subscribe. Check it out right there, where you could also watch some of our other shows because we have a whole bunch of shows for you guys on our feed as we do here each and every week. So. Now we're going to get in here with the Bears today after a week after the draft. I can't believe it's already been a week already. I feel like it takes a few days to process that and process everything that went on. But now we're talking about, as we start thinking about mini camps, and then soon enough, a couple of months from now, there'll be more mini camps and then training camp. We talk so much about the offense. We talk so much about Caleb Williams now that he's here, and our receivers, our offensive line isn't good enough. But what about our defense? Do we have a top 5 defense in the NFL, which could be very debatable? And I think we were kind of on track of that last year. So, but before we start this, guys, I just want to let you know kind of where we were ranked last year. By the end of the season, we started off kind of slow, but we ended up at number 12. For overall total defense, we were at number 12. The Browns were at number 1. The Browns were putting up like historical numbers last year. And I think until the injury bug hit them, I thought they were going to go pretty far in the playoffs with the way that defense is playing. But the Bears are number 12, but there was such a difference between the passing defense and the running defense. I mean, our running defense was number 1, 86.4 rush yards allowed last year at number 1, but then our pass defense 5, and I know you guys have watched it and been on these shows. We talked a lot of shows on here about our defense and some of our secondary, but a lot of that also was before we got Montez Sweat. So when we start breaking things down, before we get into this year, your overall takeaway, because those are kind of awkward numbers when you look at them. You don't see that very often. You'll see a little bit of a difference between the run and the pass, but not that lopsided. So what stood out for you guys last year between the run and the pass defense?
Well, I would say what stood out to me is that teams felt like they could throw on the Bears. They weren't good at getting after the quarterback. You know, their hurry percentage wasn't very good. Their knockdown percentage was a little better than that. And I mean, they just allowed a lot of passing yards. They were third most in the league last year at 4,043 yards allowed. So I think a lot of the run, you know, the high production in the run could be a little bit contributed to the fact that teams weren't trying to run so much on the Bears because they knew they could get at them with the pass and score on them because of it. Obviously, it got better when Montez Sweat was added into the fold. You know, we started getting after the quarterback more, right? We started generating more turnovers, which the Bears did really well last year. I think they were third in the league with like 28 total turnovers forced by the time the year ended. So there was some good and there was some bad, and it's hard to see because they haven't done much in this offseason to address the defense. Let's be honest, right? I mean, anybody got any quibbles with that when I say that there hasn't been a lot done to address the defense?
Yeah, no, I agree. They obviously went heavy on the offense, which is I'm okay with because the Bears don't often do that. But yeah, the acquisitions of Byard and really Booker. I mean, that's about it. You got Jonathan Owens, who I think is more of a special teamer, but I agree with you, Dustin. They didn't do enough. I'd say I thought there was some. I didn't need a Christian Wilkins, a Daniil Hunter. I didn't need $100 million player. I just wanted them to get kind of like maybe a guy like Chase Young on a 1 year deal or something like that. But yeah, with between Byard and Booker, I don't think you've impressed or improved your defense by too much. And like Dustin said, they started to generate a pass rush towards the end of the season, but Montez Sweat was a new addition to the Bears, and he put in work, and opposing offenses had trouble dealing with him. But going into next season, I assure you that every single team the Bears play, their offensive game plan is going to be block that dude. You know what I mean? Because that just puts the Bears right back in the position they were in. And maybe Jervon Dexter, who is supposed to be the anchor on Eberflus's defense. He always says it's the I think the will linebacker, which is T.J. Edwards, or Mike. I'm sorry, T.J. Edwards, the nickel, Kyler Gordon, and Dexter are the most important pieces to his defense. And I don't know that Dexter's the guy who's going to anchor that defense. And I don't think the Bears are going to generate too much pass rush. I still think they fall somewhere between 18 and 25 in regards to rankings in terms of sacks. So, yeah, I don't think they've done enough. I think I do agree. Like me and Dustin talked about this earlier. I think if they finish somewhere between 10 and 14, they're good enough because the way they've built this offense, they're good enough to win games, but I don't see them finishing anywhere above 10.
You bring some interesting points, Brandon, because we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago before the draft, and we were all debating what we want to do with that number 9 pick. And I kept saying, if that defensive stud is there, you got to really think about taking him. Now, granted, we got a doomsday that fall to us, which was great. Thank you, Falcons. When I go to Atlanta this year, I'm going to thank the Falcons fans for taking a quarterback, by the way. I didn't get a chance to talk about that after the draft, as I was like, man, I thought for sure they were going to take the receiver. But I was like, if one of those another stud defensive end there or defensive lineman there, we got to think about taking that. And
well, Atlanta should have thought about taking that for sure.
But them too. They need help with the receiver, and they need a lot of help too. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this lines up. And we're going to break position. We're going to go through the defensive line or defensive ends and linebackers here throughout the show. As we break down more about the defense, if this can be a top 5. I want to give you guys a couple of more numbers, by the way. First off, I want to say hello to everybody in our chat right now. Squeegee, we see you, brother. Thank you. We also got Bears Ski Film. Oh,
Bears Ski Film.
Bears Ski Film. My eyes are terrible now. I cannot. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like looking much closer, and I keep putting my head closer to the TV, and I'm like, wait a minute, maybe this is a bad sign that I might need glasses or eventually here. But he's talking about how the defense can be year to year and flaky, and that could be true. He also talks about Montez Sweat gets injured, knocks on wood. If he gets injured, what would the defense like? Well, hopefully he doesn't get injured. D Burns also checking in, saying hello. Thank you guys so much for commenting. You guys could leave comments in our chats as well, and we appreciate you watching tonight. But there's a couple of other numbers that kind of caught me off guard, and I really looked into these numbers today because I kind of knew about the pass and the run defense, and they were like way off, and I knew one was better than the other. But our scoring defense was kind of in, I'm not gonna say the middle of the pack, number 20 right there at 22.3 points allowed average last year. The red zone defense was terrible. 31. We were ranked 31. The Browns had a worse red zone defense. Now you can't always look too much into that, but when you're in the bottom near the bottom like that, that means essentially teams are scoring on you a lot in the red zone. And then
I think you should look into that, Matt. I think that's one of the more important statistics defensively in the NFL.
Especially when you have good teams that are driving down you, that means they're essentially going to score on you. And then I took a look at third down defense as well, and we were also near the bottom at 29.
Yeah, it was
third
rough.
down, which is really bad. And if you remember some of the games last year too, there were some games that drove me insane when there were 3rd and longs, and you would see some of the teams that we played that would just come by and get a first down, and they would do it with ease, and they would have wide open players in the middle of the field. I'm like, what is a communication breakdown with there? And that goes back to what our past defense was kind of like. So it kind of goes a little bit all over the place, but big improvements this year. And when we take a look as we start for the new season, we start looking ahead, what do you guys think is going to have to improve the most? Brandon, you kind of just said that the red zone defense has got to get better than that.
Well, yeah. And,
go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he also mentioned Jervon Dexter, right? And I think Jervon Dexter is the pivot point for this Bears defense. If he takes that next step, right? Because like you said, Flus says that 3 technique is the engine to his defense. And if he's putting pressure on the quarterback up the middle, that's going to make things a lot easier on everybody, on the defensive ends, on the linebackers, on the defensive backfield in terms of doing their jobs. So I think Gervon Dexter is the key piece to this defense taking that next step. I think he can. I really liked his play to finish out last year. He really started generating that pressure. And whether it was because Montez Sweat was taking attention or not, I mean, we got both of those guys going into this season, so that could make a big difference, you know. And then you were talking about third downs. I mean, Chicago gave up the second most first downs in the league this past year at 196 first downs, and like you were saying, they're one play away from getting off the field often, and they just weren't doing it. So a lot of that comes down to that pressure, and if you're going to apply that pressure, you're going to get off the field. So Gervon Dexter, I think, is the biggest piece to change this defense from middling to potentially that top half of the league.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Dustin. That is going to be the difference this year, this upcoming season. Because like Ryan Poles always says, the defensive tackle is the closest guy to the quarterback. It's the guy that you expect to get pressure. And I know not a lot of teams have that premier pass rushing defensive tackle, but the scheme that Eberflus runs, unfortunately, it's the piece that you need probably the most. And you know, Dexter, once Sweat got there, as they called the Tez effect, we kept hearing that at the end of the season. Dexter did start to play better. He's the kid. The kid's got really good strength. He's got to get off the line quicker. His technique and form, he's got to fine tune it, man. That's my biggest issue with Dexter is he's got all that physical accolades to play the position, but he needs to work on his form. Really, he gets off the line pretty slowly, especially compared to a guy like Pickens, who was drafted in the same draft last season. Pickens has the technique, he's got the form, he just doesn't have the power that Dexter has. But you've got to somehow generate pass rush on the inside of that line, and the third down thing, like, it just drove me nuts. It seemed like every time the Bears put a team, then they got, like Dustin said, they were constantly they're constantly getting teams on third down and just allowing a first down almost every single time. And it drove me nuts. It's not something we're used to watching as Bears fans, but you know, Sweat's going to need some help. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, you can't, the team is basically, the defensive roster is basically the exact same as it was. It really is. And Eddie Jackson played poorly, so I have no doubt that Byard makes an impact. The secondary is incredible. It is. It's the most cohesive unit, though, in sports. So as good as the secondary is, if they don't generate more pass rush, I don't see. You said they finished 12th by the end of the year, Matt. I don't see them being any better than that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, guys, as we continue. We're going to break down some of the position players here coming up, and today talking about the top 5 defense in the NFL. Do you think the Bears will have it or not? You know, I was looking at some of the comments here. D. Burns, first off, thank you guys for watching tonight. You can like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Yeah. And D. Burns, as I was talking about the draft a little bit ago here, I'll bring it back up. He brings up, do you think that we were going to get players done I'm sorry, what was the one I saw here? He was talking about if we were going to trade back in the draft. If he thought that it would be a better idea, instead of keeping the number 9 pick, trading back into the draft and getting more picks and maybe another defensive stud. Now, I don't think so, because we had a Dunze fall right there, and I think that's a guy you want to go after when you have a young quarterback coming in at the number 1 pick, and you can have that young receiver and pair those two up together for a very long time and keep our fingers crossed that they're going to be together for a very long time. I think you got to go that route. If he didn't do that, let's just say the Falcons took him at number 8, then yes, I think you could think about that, or you could have thought about going with another defensive player.
But if you want to, and I don't agree with it. I still don't agree with the trade back, because if you want a defensive stud, you take a defensive stud at 9. You know what I mean? You had every defensive player on the board still available at 9. You take whoever the hell you want there. You don't trade back.
But a lot of defensive players that were like number 15, Latu to the Colts, like those guys went to the Rams, right? Like at 19. So, I mean, there were a lot of guys that were in that target rank. Byron Murphy, right? A lot of these guys were
that's probably who I would have taken at 9.
Yeah, me too. But like the board like Cooper said, the board kind of dictated to the Bears, like, this is what you got to do. If Adunze is not there, I think you do entertain that trade back scenario. I mean, obviously, it's what's done is done, but if you're going to get one of those defenders, it was obviously an offensive draft at the very top. So why not accrue a little extra draft capital to then still get the guy you were targeting if you move back a couple of spots?
Yeah, 23 offensive players taken in the first round.
The quarterback. What was it? 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. I couldn't believe that. And I mean that changed the entire draft. Then you start seeing some of these players fall further out into the first round, where some of these teams are picking players like the Lions taking the corner. I'm like, the Lions go trade up to get the cornerback. I'm like, if those quarterbacks wouldn't have gone that quick, it's just remarkable to see. Every year with the draft, you never know what you're going to get. And Bears ski film, yeah, we totally agree with you. You keep both guys if Caleb's good, and those two guys are together with Odunze, and they could be good 5 years from now. That's the goal of this, to keep those guys together like that. D Burn says if Atlanta didn't pick Penix, Raiders would have come up to a trade. I heard the same thing. I don't know though. I don't know. I could never tell what the Raiders were going to do in this draft. I do like the tight end, the Bowers that they took, but at the same time, it was a little puzzling. I thought they could have that they were the team that they were going to need a quarterback. So I don't know. This is why we get to talk about things like this, because you don't know what the heck was going to happen with the draft. We got Michael coming in too, guys. 23 offensive players this year. Might be the opposite next year. Super loaded defensive class next year. That was another thing I was reading when they started already doing their mock drafts. When some of the draft experts were already putting them out, they said the next year is going to be the year for defensive players. So. We're speaking of defense right now. Thank you guys for watching tonight on Monsters of the Madhouse, the Chicago Sports Podcast. You guys could like and subscribe our YouTube channel. I also want to thank our friends at Bridges Scoreboard, Northwest Indiana's Chicago Sports Headquarters Hall of Fame menu. They got cold beer there. It's such a cool place. We'll have a lot of our shows out there with Trax, our original creator of the show. So we can't thank Bridges enough, and can't thank you guys enough as well. So the question is, what does a top defense look like? And when you start looking at some of the stats last year, the Browns were number one, and the Browns had a lot of injuries, and even on defense, more so on offense, but their defense was putting up historical numbers until they really started going down. But their defensive yards averaged 270.2. They were kind of up there all year round. Their pass defense was number one. Their secondary is really good. And even the run defense, which was their weak part of their team, they were still number 11. So they weren't fully bottom of the barrel on their defense. And I think when you kind of look at their team, and it starts with their defensive end with Myles Garrett, who I think is one of the best in the league. And then it kind of goes from there, and you see some of the playmakers that they have with Ward and others in their secondaries. They have playmakers at each spot, and they also have a defensive-minded head coach that's very good at what he does. So with that being said, before we even get to the Bears, we start talking about a top 5 defense. There's always a lot of talk about our head coach, Matt Eberflus. Is Matt Eberflus the right head coach? There was rumors last year. Is he the right man for the job? Is he going to get let go with the others? Is he coming back for another year? He did a phenomenal job when he took over the defense last year, but he also brought in Williams, the coordinator. So there's a lot of things you can go either way with. So the question is, Matt Eberflus, does he deserve to have this shot? Do you guys think he's the right man for this position to lead us the way and lead us for another defensive, to be a top 5 defense?
That's the biggest question in Chicago Bears. And when you're talking Chicago Bears right now, that's the biggest question to me is Eberflus the guy to take this team to the next level? You know, you see all the time there's that coach or manager or whoever it is that's in place that's like, you kind of feel like a placeholder, buddy. Like when this team is actually good enough to be what we expect it to be and competing, I don't know if you're going to be the guy coaching us. And I kind of get that feeling with Eberflus. Now, last year, again, there was a big turnaround on that defense side of the ball when he took over the play calling, right? And when we added Montez Sweat. And they started to be competitive in games. So, and he held that locker room together through some tough times. He earned this chance just on the strength of that. Now, I thought personally, if you don't talk to Bill Belichick, you're crazy. If you don't talk to Mike Vrabel, you're crazy. Like these are some of the best coach. Bill Belichick's the best coach in history of NFL. So, but they're giving him the second chance here, and I don't know that he deserved it. Terrible win-loss record, terrible record in the division. I don't know if he is that leader of men that we need. But we're going to find out this year, right? I mean, if this defense takes the next step and he's doing the play calling and it's impacting that defense in a positive way, and our offense takes the next step with Waldron running it, You know, if they have a winning record, you can't move on from Flus. So it's really going to come down to the Bears' success this year and whether or not they get enough wins to be above 500. I think if they are, Flus is coming back and we run it back again. And if they aren't, you can move on and you can start talking to some better options for that prestigious job of coaching the Chicago Bears.
I think it's obviously the hottest seat in this organization is Flus, and what concerns me is if Ryan Poles doesn't make the trade for Montez Sweat, I don't even know if Flus still has a job, and that bothers me. And you know, head coaches, when he took over the play calling, he did a really good job at it. And once he got Montez Sweat, he was able to blitz a lot more, which really improved the overall performance of the Bears defense. But what really bothers me is not only, he took the play calling over because he vetted and hired a very poor staff. Let's be honest. Like 2 coaches from the Bears staff were released for God knows what. It
Personal
was
reasons.
listed
They
as
say personal reasons, but something
inappropriate
obviously happened.
behavior is what I read.
Inappropriate behavior.
And Flus seemed to be like, we all praised Flus for how he held the locker room together when these things happen, but like he's got to take some responsibility for that as well. And the fourth quarter, I mean, there's one thing that I look at a head coach, you can look at play calling, like we all got on Getsy for the poor play calling. They had a game with the most screen passes thrown in history. But the fourth quarter collapses. The first quarter, the first game against Detroit, the game against Cleveland, the game 2 years ago in 2022 against Green Bay when they had I think it was a 18-point lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, the guy is now in his 2-year tenure. I think he's given up 4 double-digit fourth quarter leads. And there's just like when you're a defensive head coach, that's like when your offense puts you, which was bad, we all know was bad, when that offense would put you in position to win a game and you have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, a defensive coach is supposed to be the guy who, like, you're supposed to almost assume you've won the game. I think the Bears in 2 of those games last year, Detroit and Cleveland, there was a 3% chance that they lost the game when the fourth quarter started. And they lost those 2 games. And Denver, I think, was like a 7% chance or something. So, I mean, that's got to go on coaching. And a guy who's, like I said, a defensive head coach for having such a collapse on defense to just allow 3 scores in all 3 of those games in the fourth quarter, it's unacceptable. So Eberflus really concerns me. He really does. And I hate to see the Bears, they've clearly done something different. They're building this offense in a different way, a special way. But I feel like we're in the cycle again where do we end up firing the head coach the first year of a rookie quarterback season? That bothers me. I don't know that he earned it. I think Ryan Poles made the Montez Sweat trade to kind of see what Flus could provide if we generated a little bit of a pass rush, and he did get better. I don't think the Bears. I don't know, how do you guys feel? Do you think the Bears played the same level as they finished last year with a 3 takeaway average per game over the last like 5 weeks of the season? I don't see that happening again.
No, I don't either. And you know what? The one game that I think of last year that really bothered me was that Denver game. And I know that was kind of towards the beginning there. It was like game 4 or 5 because Denver to that point, their defense, if you guys remember, their defense was so bad and they were giving up historical numbers and they somehow came back into that game. We were up by multiple scores and we somehow lost that game. And that was the first time where I really started thinking, is this guy the right head coach for this team? Because I don't care. I know they're still in their second year of trying to get the right players in place. It was probably not going to be a winning season. But how does that happen when you lose to a team like that and you lose the way they did? And it made me think, and I'm like, is it going to kind of set that up for the rest of the season? And then they go get Sweat, and things kind of fell into place a little bit more, and it got a little bit better. And then he started calling the plays, and I think it got progressively better too.
Can I tell you my biggest concern with Matt Eberflus as the head coach of the Chicago Bears? I don't like zone coverage teams. When you're in a big spot and you got to make a play to get off the field on that third down, man to man is what wins. And when you play zone coverage all the time, it's a lot harder to transition to man defense. When you play man defense, you can transition a lot easier to zone coverage if you need to. So the cover 2 And the cover three, honestly, they're kind of going through this phase in the NFL where teams are beating the hell out of it. A lot of offensive, you talk about the Broncos gave up those 63 points to the Dolphins. That's what you're referring to. And that's laughable.
73.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I was gonna say it's more than that.
But my main concern with Eberflus is he has a system and he's going to stick to it. And I don't know that it's a system that can succeed defensively when you got to hold down a lead, when a team needs to throw. I don't know if it's a defensive scheme that can consistently win you those tight games, because it's meant to give up yards. You're sitting back in zone coverage and letting things happen in front of you, and then you're making a play on the ball versus making a play on the ball when it's coming at the receiver to get off the damn field. That's my biggest concern with Eberflus. I'm not a fan of these cover 2, cover 3 schemes, the way the NFL is going right now. You got to be really good. You got to be perfect to get off the field with that type of defense.
It's interesting you say that too, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that fares with all these new quarterbacks coming in and the rookie classes that I think are more athletic than ever before. And I'm excited to see how it works and what plays out for the season. And there's a lot of people that are chiming in too. First off, thank you guys for watching and chiming in tonight. D Burns says that the D has to step up this year. Michael comes in and says you can't deny his beard in the offseason. Yes, he does look like a different person, doesn't he, Matt Eberflus? He looks.
Yeah, no. When I saw that picture of him with the beard, I was like, all right, we might actually have a coach.
He doesn't have that clean cut look anymore. He looks more tough now, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Squeegee says I agree with Brandon. Also, poor play calling on offense and poor punting and special teams that didn't help. Well, we got a punter in the draft, so I don't think we got to worry about that anymore, right? Or with a new punter coming in the 4th round. Bears Junkie 23 HOF, believe in the beard. We're getting a lot of the beard, and the scrolls fear the beard. Man, I think Matt Eberflus is gonna be popular enough for his beard. Somebody's gonna have to market that, or somebody's gonna have to get that out there, man, with his new look, so they can blast it and see how tough he really is. So realistically, guys, with the record this year, before we start breaking into some of the Bears defense, with the record this year, does Matt Eberflus, what does he need to have for the Bears, for the Bears to be successful, for the Bears to go to the playoffs? I think it's going to be double digits. I think they have to at least have 10 wins, even if they're like 9-8. I still don't know if that's going to save his job.
Brandon,
I agree with you, Matt. They're going to have 10 wins plus, especially because of the division they're in. The NFC is weak, and it still is to me. I mean, some of the teams that I thought were the best in the NFC didn't do too much to impress me over the offseason. The Lions look like they might have got a little better on defense. I don't like anything the Packers did in the offseason. The Cowboys just kind of sat back. They think they just they re-signed a running back they had 2 years ago and just kind of accepted that they are who they are. So I do think there's the Bears. The best thing about the good thing for the Bears is they're still going to play the weakest strength of schedule in their division because they finished last place last year. So I do think they have an opportunity. If Caleb balls out, they have an opportunity to make the playoffs. But I agree with you. It's going to take 10 or 11 wins.
I think honestly, the 9 wins keeps Flus's job. If they finish over 500 after just drafting number 1, and number 9 in this most recent draft, I think a lot of teams would be happy with that trajectory. And I think the Bears are one of those teams that will be, considering they haven't gotten close. I mean, 7 wins last year is the best they've done in a couple of years. So you're still, you're moving up, you're ascending within the rankings and with your record. And I think that's enough to keep his job. I mean, I just saw that Scrolls put, if our defense is top 5, Flus stays. I agree with that too. I mean, even top 10, because with the offense we're going to have a number 10 defense, will be good enough to win 9 to 10 games this season. So I think that's the number 9 wins is the marker there. If he can get to that, his job is safe.
We bring everybody in the chat brings up some good points, even from our Chicago sports podcast here, talking about how the players, and you do hear a lot about the players, how much they love playing for Eberflus. I don't think I've heard one player on defense say anything negative about this guy. So I think that's what I love. That's a cool thing that I love about watching Eberflus, because he does look like he's a guy that people like to play for. Tremaine Edmonds was talking about that. Ryan Poles obviously loves him. That was his choice to be here for the Bears coaching, to be the Bears head coach. So It'll be interesting to see how it goes this year, and I think the record's going to say a lot. And I do think this is a playoff year, and it sounds like it. They're up there talking about how this is it. This is time to go now, and this is a playoff team.
Well, we were talking about Poles loves Flus, but we were just talking about how there was very minimal additions to the defense. If your head coach is a defensive head coach, if I were the GM, I'd be trying to give him all the pieces to make that defense the motor for my team. So that synergy should be like, if you need a 3 technique to make your defense run, and you think you need someone better than Javon Dexter, then I'm going to get it for you. You know what I'm saying? So from my perspective, you never heard anyone say anything bad about Justin Fields either. Everyone defended him to the death, right? Until he was gone. So, you're as good as your record. You're only good as good as your production. So we need to see some production to back up that love.
And I forgot who wrote the article, guys, but I don't know that Matt Eberflus was 100% a Ryan Poles hire. I think Matt Eberflus was kind of chosen for Ryan Poles, to be honest. I know Ted Phillips had asked George McCaskey to kind of stay out of the hiring process with the head coach, and McCaskey got so angry that he literally ousted Phillips. There's an article about it. McCaskey got so mad that he actually had to leave the building, and then he called Ryan Poles in regards to Matt Eberflus, and Matt Eberflus got a second interview from another team for a head coaching job, and McCaskey called Poles and said, "Make sure our guy comes back tomorrow." So he said, "Our guy." That it sounded to me, when I read the article, it sounded to me like McCaskey had more influence in hiring Matt Eberflus than Ryan Poles did. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, Eberflus was extended. Or not extended. They kept him around after this season. So Ryan Poles is obviously on board. But I don't know that if Ryan Poles had full control over hiring his own coach, that would have been the guy.
It's interesting you say that. I have not heard that. I did not know that. I didn't know that
Yeah,
process.
I really thought that was read. Matt, I'll find it and send it to you. It was a really, really good read. I don't remember who wrote it. It was the Bears Insider, but I'll send it to you when I find the article again.
Well, like you said, he kept Flus this year, so he is his guy now.
Yeah, he's committed.
Yeah. Whatever happened 2 years ago, like now he's riding with Flus, so they need to see the production.
So it's interesting because I'm looking. Squeegee says it, and he agrees with a lot of things that we're saying right here. Defense regresses. I think Flus will be unemployed soon. If we could avoid the key injuries, this is from the scrolls. I'm seeing 14-3 and 17-0 by 2026, dude. I like that. I like that enthusiasm right there, man. I like this dude right here. Keep putting up some type of comments like that, man. Where we're going to be going undefeated. Caleb Williams throwing for 10,000 yards, and we're going all the way. Thank you all for watching the Chicago Sports Podcast tonight. We appreciate it. Monsters of the Madhouse. You guys could like and follow us along on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, when you go there, when you do that, you can watch our other shows because we have multiple shows that goes on during the week. We got more coming up, so you can have that. It'll be popping up on your phone, and you'll have it right there for you. And you can listen to whether you're driving, whether you're at the gym like I do every morning. I usually put it on. And whatever you're doing, that's the beauty about this. And we thank you guys for being on with us tonight. And we also want to thank Chicagoland's most delicious and fun sports dining experience. Head to the River. That's River Street Tavern, located at 102 River Street in East Dundee. It open Tuesdays through Sundays. So you can head out there, get some delicious food, have a couple of drinks. And that is exactly what I'm thinking of right now, guys, for this weekend, to go out and get some drinks and some food. And that's what we do. We go out and we watch sports, and then we talk about it the following week, and we make everything better for the Chicago sports fans.
I'm going out there tomorrow night. I'll be at River Street tomorrow night, guys.
So if you guys go to River Street, there you go. You can go up to Brandon. You can go take a selfie with him. And
you can touch him.
Yeah, you can grab him by the shoulder. He likes when you go behind.
My brother, Kyle, all he does is twin no matter what. Our co-host works at River Street Tavern, guys. So go check him out. He's a phenomenal bartender. But it is our birthday tomorrow. So tradition is
happy
I see
birthday.
him. Yeah, thanks, man. Tradition is I see him on my birthday. So I will be out there tomorrow.
That's so cool, man. Well, happy early birthday. Yeah, you guys are going to have to celebrate. And there's no better place to celebrate than being out tomorrow. And I'm not going to ask how old you're turning, but I'll just say happy birthday to you, Brandon. So, guys, we're talking about the Bears' top 5 defense. Thanks for everybody watching and on our YouTube channel right now. It's interesting. We're going to go by positions now. When we talk about the top 5 defense, I'm looking in their chats right now, and Chicago Sports Podcast, Jervon, Tommy Harris really likes Jervon, and anytime you have former Bears raving about some of the current players that are on the team right now, I know I always listen. And I know he's kind of stood out to us. He likes a lot about his technique. And I'm looking for the scrolls right now. Next year's draft will be complete the task. Yeah, it usually takes about 3 or 4 years when you want to put your entire team together. If you're doing a full rebuild, I think it takes 4 years. Now, 3 years, you should really start seeing the difference. But I think it does go to 4 years when you have all your position players and some of your reserves, some of the key players that you can plug in when somebody gets hurt and you're not wondering who's coming up or who we're calling up. Squeegee, thanks, man. He says, nice show, fellas. We really appreciate you watching tonight. And Brandon, we got a fan here. We got our guy, Michael. He says, sorry for Squeegee. Man, my eyes are so bad tonight. Autographs for Brandon. Yeah. Brandon, autographs, $5.
Yeah. That's true, Mike. That's true, Mike. I will pay you guys $5 to ask me for an autograph.
I think that's a good deal, though. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So yeah, and then Squeegee also says division this year, playoff push, and then Super Bowl in the new stadium by 2026, which that could be a very realistic possibility.
2026. I don't know about that.
I think the new stadium's gonna be like 2029 more so, but we'll find out about that. You never know. I feel like we've been talking about this one for months now. So
got to put shovels in the ground, man.
Yeah, we got to start rolling. Guys, let's talk about Montez Sweat for a second before we start going on to talk a little bit more about the defense, because he had such an incredible year last year, not only with Washington, but also with the Bears, and he had the same amount of sacks. He had a great start, and he came over. He continued just being a beast last year, and he put up some incredible numbers. He changed the way our defense looked. We were talking about that earlier. It made other players on our team better. So realistically, when you look at Montez Sweat, what type of year do you think he needs to have this year, this up and coming season? Is it a sack total you're looking at? Is it the pressures? Is it something else that you're going to need to see from him in order for the Bears to be a top 5 defense?
Yeah, no, it's the hurries. I think, I mean, he's never been he hadn't been a high sack guy, a high sack total guy up until this last year. I mean, but if he's getting consistent pressure on the quarterback to where that offensive line and the play caller needs to focus on chipping him, on sending extra attention to him, it's obviously going to open up things for other guys along that line. Like Trax mentioned Gervon Dexter. I really like him too. And I think he has the potential to really take a big step this year. And a guy like Sweat wreaking havoc is going to make that easier on Dexter. So you really look for him to kind of continue what he was doing this past year when he got with the Bears, to where he's making life easier on those cornerbacks. He's making life easier on those safeties and everybody else along that defensive line, just by generating pressure and causing some issues in the backfield. I mean, if he were to hit, 12 sacks, I'd be happy. But I mean, if he's got enough hurries and pressures where other guys are getting sacks or other guys are getting interceptions, I still find that obviously to be a successful season for him. So any particular number is not really what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for him to continue to have that same impact on this defense overall, just by being the monster that he is.
Yeah, I think, like I said, after he was acquired last year, the Bears kept referring to as the Tez effect. He's a multiplier. He makes players better, and Dustin's right. Hopefully he can aid in the production of a guy like Gervon Dexter, but I think quite the opposite. Somebody else needs to generate some pass rush in order for Montez Sweat to have the season that I think he's capable of. I think he can get around 16 sacks. He's a better player than I thought he was when the Bears traded for him, to be honest. I was a little skeptical of the trade. He ended up showing off. He ended up showing me out. Like, he's a great player, but you can't let an offensive line focus on just Montez Sweat. Somebody else has to provide a pass rush for Sweat to be able to. Sweat's not. I don't care who you are, unless you're Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, or T.J. Watt. These guys, if you're facing a double team every time that the ball is snapped, you're in trouble, man. I don't know that Sweat's the kind of guy that can bull rush through that. So one of these other guys, whether it be Booker, the rookie, which will be, I mean, like a miracle for us all Bears fans, but somebody else on that line is going to have to generate pass rush. Somebody else on that line is going to have to draw attention, because if they don't, and I've referred to this multiple times on this podcast, guys, the Packers in the final game of last year figured it out. And it surprised me that it took as long as it did for a team to figure it out. They figured it out. If you block this guy, if you chip him with the tight end, if you put him in double, the Bears' offensive or defensive line was kind of stagnant. I think he got 3 pressures in the final game of the season, and the Bears got beat up. And I know the score didn't reflect necessarily what I'm saying, but there was never there's never a point in that game where I thought the Bears were gonna win. And the Packers kind of dominated the trenches because they figured out, like, you just got to stop this guy. Like, it was surprised me that it took so long, like, that no other team prior to the Packers figured out, like, once Montez Sweat was acquired, the Bears started to take the ball away a lot because they have a really strong secondary. We know that, guys. The secondary is one of the best in the NFL. So if Sweat is able to apply pressure, the secondary was able to take the ball away, and the Packers figured out, like, all right, if we just don't let this one guy in to get to the quarterback, we're good. You know what I mean? And it showed. It's revealed itself now, so the rest of the NFL is aware of it. And I hope Gervon Dexter does take that leap, but somebody else on that line needs to apply pressure in order for Sweat to have the season that I think that he is capable of. Because, like I said, I think he's capable of anywhere between 12 and 16 sacks, but he can't do it on his own, man. It's gonna take. You're gonna have to take the attention off of him. You're gonna have to force an offense to leave Sweat in one-on-one.
Well, we got Bruja 7 saying 26. Now I don't know about 26 sacks, 34 for Walter, 51 for Buck.
Well, last year they put up 30 for Mike Brown total, and that wasn't very good. Second to last in the league. so yeah, we definitely need more sacks out of this defense.
Bruja 7 says,
where do you guys think they finish in regards to rankings and sacks? Where do you think they finish?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting because I'm looking at our position players right now. So we're obviously a lot of a talk is going to be about our defensive end, Montez Sweat, and then DeMarcus Walker on the other side. But what about our inside? Gervon Dexter, we were just talking about how Chicago Sports Podcast put it up. Tommy Harris was raving about him, and Andrew Billings. I think those are going to be our first 4 starters. And then some of our depth behind that. I mean, you do got Zach Pickens, you got Dominique Robinson. I think it's going to have to come from Walker on the other end. I really do. Do I know the answer to that? I don't. I still think they're probably a pass rusher short, and that was something I was looking for in free agency or something more so in the draft, or in the first part of the draft, I should say. And I still think they're missing that key piece. So I think if Montez Sweat stays to what we're kind of seeing in the chat here from everybody, first off, thank you everybody that's commenting right now. We see them all out there. Thank you guys for watching tonight. If Sweat realistically goes between 12 and 15 sacks, I think we're going to have to get on the other end at least between 5 and 8, maybe, if that's comparable.
Yeah, I agree, Matt.
Yeah, no, I mean, you want to get up into the 40s if you're going to be a top 5 defense. You want to be up into the high 40s, up into the 50s to really make that impact. And I don't know. I like Austin Booker a lot. I thought that was a good addition. They traded back up into the 5th round to get him, and that made a lot of sense to me. I wanted him in the 4th. Honestly, he could be that good. It's going to take a little time though. So where's it coming from in the interim? And is he just like a NASCAR guy? He comes out and on pass rushing situations, and you move Walker to the inside to make that kind of impact on the pass rushing. It's going to take some blitzing. And the Bears had a decent blitz rate last year. So, I mean, they're willing to do it, and it's going to take some of that in order to generate the pressure that they need to, because like Brandon was saying, I mean, you got to take the attention off of Sweat, but at the same time, you need Sweat to take the attention off of other guys. So if you start stepping up when he's taking that attention, then it kind of becomes this cascading effect where everybody's able to get in there and get after it. And if you're blitzing behind that on top of it, then you can make an impact and get up into the 40s, I think, because they do have some guys that they can blitz that have shown that they can do it. So I'd be looking for 45 sacks at least. If you're talking top 5 defense, I need that at least.
Leroy, Pinky, what's up, Pinky? We're glad to see you in the chat, man. I hope you're doing well. Says we need more edge rushers and 3 tech to play more man coverage. And we also got here from Chicago Sports Podcast. Defense has a huge advantage. The way more options. If the punter pins the ball within 20 yards, we're going to talk about the punter here in a second. I felt like that was a hot topic in the draft because he is sensational. Everything I saw. Is he worth a 4th-round pick? I don't know, but we're going to find that out. Pinky also saying 12-5 otherwise. Let's go. We're ready to go. And then we got Chicago Sports Podcast defense averaging 15.5 points. I bet our defense scores more this year, honestly, which brings me to my point, which I was talking about earlier about our scoring defense, guys, and how we were kind of near the bottom of the barrel last year. So I think that's got to really improve. And I think our defensive line's got to improve because I think everywhere else, when you look at our depth chart, we were sitting here talking about a defensive line, but I really, really like our linebackers with Edwards, Edmonds, and Sanborn. I thought the linebackers, especially as the year gone on last year, you saw what a stud Edwards was, what a tackling machine he was. Edmonds struggled at times, but then you saw the type of plays that you're like, okay, I see why we signed this guy. And I think Jack Sanborn is a stud. So I think with the defensive play, how our defensive line plays can really impact and benefit our linebackers too.
No, yeah, I agree. And the linebackers, I think, are a strength of this defense. If Edmonds is healthy, like you said, as he started to get healthy, you started to see him make plays. And that middle linebacker is really important in the cover 2 defense because they got to cover a big portion of fields when you're in pass coverage. And also, he's a pretty damn good blitzer if you send him at the quarterback. So I mean, the linebackers, I'm not, like you said, I'm not really concerned about them. I think they're going to make the plays that are in front of them, and that's what they're good at. I mean, they don't really, missed tackles is something that the Bears were kind of high up there in this past year. That's something they got to clean up. Like they had 110 missed tackles this past season. So I mean, you want to see that number get a little better if you're talking about improving this defense too. And that's just coaching and technique. But those linebackers are going to make the plays in front of them. I think Byard and Brisker are going to be good at the safety position, and you're talking about Stevenson and Johnson at the cornerback positions with, they got some more help there too. So they're pretty solid all around. I think the crux of all of it again is just that defensive line generating pressure, and if they're not, is Flus willing to blitz enough to get it with those linebackers and safeties, nickelbacks, make the impact that way.
Yeah, the back 7 of the Bears roster, I'm not concerned about. I think they have one of the strongest secondaries in the league. Between Brisker, even Byard, Gordon, Stevenson, JJ, and then Terrell Smith also had a really good rookie year. He did. He was the Bears seemed to do okay in finding talent in the secondary. And Kyler Gordon's going to be a big piece this year, and we all know that. And the
Our
scheme
nickel,
that
yeah.
and the scheme that he runs, Eberflus, your nickel's a pretty important piece of that. And I do think Kyler Gordon's sack numbers go up probably a little bit. I know he likes to blitz with Brisker and Edwards, but I do think he's going to put Gordon in that position a little more. But it all comes down to these guys can't cover for 6 to 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So if the Bears don't generate a pass rush, I don't know what it means to have the best secondary in football, because I do believe that when we're talking about top 5 defense, I think the Bears are a top 5 secondary in the NFL, hands down, at least on paper for sure. Before the season starts, I think they're definitely top 5. But Edwards had an incredible season. TJ Edwards surprised me. I was disappointed when we didn't re-sign Roquan Smith. I think when you have a guy like that who you drafted, who plays at the level he did, you pay him no matter what he's asking for. And they were able to get 2 linebackers by trading Roquan. They were able to get 2 linebackers in Edwards and Edmonds. And Edmonds got the bigger. I think Edmonds and Edwards should trade contracts, to be honest with you, because it was Edwards who really surprised me, who really came on strong for the Bears last year. I know he won like the character award. I don't know what the award's called for like on the field character, whatever it is. But The guy had major impact, and I think he's going to do even better next year with the Bears. But like Dustin said, if the good thing that the effect that Montez Sweat had that impressed me the most for Eberflus in regards to Eberflus keeping his job was Eberflus seems like a guy who wants to blitz. He didn't really have that luxury when they had no pass rush, and now that Sweat's there, he has the ability to blitz. He has the ability to kind of confuse people. He was doing that a lot. Like guys, he was confusing quarterbacks. A lot of guys look like they're going to drop into coverage and then blitzing the quarterback, and it got the Bears out of a couple of pickles.
Brandon,
But
Flus doesn't want to blitz. I mean, that's not the type of defense that he runs. He wants to generate the pressure with his front four because, you want to sit everybody else back in coverage. He had the blitz last year because they weren't generating pressure. If you remember that Washington game, he finally started blitzing like crazy and sending them at the quarterback,
Well, yeah, but after they acquired Montez Sweat, he blitzed more than he had prior to the Sweat trade. So,
and I think he had to change up a little bit too. When you get an impact player like that, you have to really put him in the right position, no matter what type of defense you're running. Well, that's when your coaching comes in. Yeah.
Right. And if you guys look at the blitz, most of the time when they blitzed after the acquisition of Sweat, the blitz came from the side Sweat was on because obviously the offense has to worry about Montez Sweat. So the blitz came from typically the right side, which is where Sweat generally plays. He could play both, but he typically played from the right side because you're probably playing a less talented tackle on that side. But the blitz came from the side that Sweat was on. I think that gave Flus the ability to start to blitz. I think the Bears finished. I can't give you the number, but they finished like top 10 in blitzes and defense.
I think their blitz rate was like 22%. They were up there for sure. I don't. In an ideal world, though, I just don't know that's when you're running a cover 2 defense. That's not what you want to do. You want to get a couple of horses up front that can go. No, after.
You don't, because like you said, Dustin, they play a lot of zone, and you don't want to blitz when you're in zone. I mean, we all know that. Like, you typically want to blitz when you're playing man, but I do think that it's going to be necessary for the Bears to succeed on defense to continue to blitz next season because they still didn't get that guy. I don't have much faith in Walker, guys. I really don't. He's an effective player when he's got fresh legs, but if he's required to play most of the game, we all saw last year he runs out of gas. He doesn't have the motor Sweat has. I think he had, what did he have? What did Walker finish with? 4 sacks?
Yeah, it was 4 or 5. It was very low.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Matt, that in order for the pass rush to be effective to complement the secondary, Walker's going to have to produce at least 6 to 8, right?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why we're gonna be asking this question. Why did maybe we should have gone out and got another pass rusher? Now we'll wait and see here. There's gonna be more cuts coming June 1st. The salary cap cuts coming, so it'll be interesting to see if they go out and see if there's anybody else that's on the street that they think would be a good fit. Hey, thank you guys for chiming in tonight. Sean, our boy Sean Lugo just chimed in, man. Thanks for watching. Also want to say Bruja 7 talking about double team has opened up the blitz. Correct. We were just talking about that. Squeegee saying he wants to generate pressure from the front 4 so that the linebackers can be free to roam. Yep. And I think that's also going to be very important because those linebackers, especially when you have a TJ Edwards, that's a very, very good tackler. He can focus a little bit more. The pressure is going to make them, the front 4 pressure is going to really put pressure on the offensive line and the running backs and the quarterback. And I think the linebackers could be in big favor for that. Bruja 7 also talking about ball hawks will take flight. Yannick will be back. I don't know about that. I'm not. Honestly, I think if he was coming back now, he could possibly maybe by August, but I don't think so. I think that was just a one and done last year. I think he was there because they absolutely needed some depth and some help, and they just didn't have the playmakers and some of the new players that were coming in at that time. So I think I'd be surprised if we see him back, but you never know. Depending what other teams do or what other teams are going to offer, he could be a better fit somewhere else, or heck, who knows? You just don't know at this point. I think it's interesting, guys. We're talking about Yannick. Look at the free agent list right now. There are so many veterans out there. I mean, Eddie Jackson, he hasn't even signed anywhere yet, but look at Calais Campbell, Ryan Tannehill. If you really look at that list, I think this list right now of free agents that are out there is bigger than it's been probably the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I think if Yannick is back, that's not a good sign for the Bears. Just to kind of go piggyback off what you were saying, Cooper. I don't think he was. I didn't really like what he put on the field when he was playing for us, and I would rather go in a different direction. Bud Dupree is still out there. He's a guy who hasn't performed very well either, but I'd rather, bring him in and give him a shot because at least he can set the edge. He's a strong dude. He plays with leverage, and we know what Yannick is, and I don't think it's good enough. But if he comes back, it's because the Bears don't really have another option, from my perspective. But yeah, the free agent list that's out there. I mean, we're talking defense, but you mentioned Ryan Tannehill. I really would love to see him come in as the backup quarterback for this team, to have that good veteran presence that can, work with Caleb, see some things that maybe he doesn't see because he's seen so many things in the league, and could spot start if he had to. And you could feel comfortable with that going into a game. So, but yeah, I don't want any more of Yannick personally. I don't want to see him back on the Bears.
You bring up an interesting one in Bud Dupree, and I could tell you, living here with our Steelers fan, my girlfriend, diehard Steeler fan, he was very good on the Steelers, but he has not been able to find his way ever since he left them. He signed a huge contract with the Titans. That didn't work out. Then he went to Atlanta, and he did not play very well last year. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like sometimes you're in a good situation and you're in the right environment, and then you go somewhere else and it's just not the same anymore. I feel like it's that way for some like certain players, but I think that's a very interesting name that you bring up because I've seen that guy make some really good plays. Yeah. And I think he would also be a very good fit on this team. Guys, thank you so much for watching tonight. Monsters of the Madhouse Chicago Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And you can also watch some of our past shows as we're talking about the Bears' top 5 defense here in the NFL. We've kind of we're breaking down we've been breaking down the entire defense. We broke down some of the stats from last year, what it's like to have a top 5 defense in the league right now. Squeegee brings up a good question, guys. Do you think Poles is waiting for post-June 1st cuts? I kind of just brought that up a couple minutes ago. I think that's a very good question, Squeegee, because I think that is part of this process right now. I think he might not be done yet. I think when that happens, because teams are going to start releasing some of these players for salary cap reasons, and you always get some surprise cuts. And every year, it happens every year, you get a surprise cut from somebody that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, and if you're limited in what you can spend at this point, because you still got to pay your draft class, and we were dwindling down a little bit, you want to see everything that's available there before you spend that money, right? You don't want to go spend it on one guy and then this guy gets cut, and you're like, that guy would have been a much better fit for this team. So patience right here is definitely the better part of valor for the Bears, because you want to see all the options available before you spend that money, because you don't have a lot of it to spend right now going into this upcoming season.
No, Chicago Sports Podcast. Cubs won 1-0. Hey man, the Cubs playing very well right now, man. With some of the injured players with that side of that lineup. Bruja, thank you, man. Bruja 7, fun show. Thanks for the interaction. No, man, thank you, man. Thank you for watching tonight. We can't thank you enough. Can't thank you guys enough for watching as we're talking about the Bears and everything on their defense right now. We do have a couple of minutes left here on the show tonight. First off, when it comes to the Bears and when it comes to our division, Dustin, we were talking about this a little bit. We've talked a little bit about this in our show. We've breaking down the Bears. I think they could be a top 5 defense. We've broken down what we think needs to happen. I think we're all on the same page that we need, outside of Montez Sweat, we need some more sacks from some of our other contributors on our line, and everything else could look like a top 5 defense. But when you guys look around let's start with the NFC North. Is there anybody in our division right now defensively? We can talk about offense all day, and guys like Jordan Love and the Lions with Jared Goff. But is there a defense in our division that you guys look at that could be right there, top 5, top 10 when it's all said and done this year?
I don't know about top 5, top 10. I mean, in our division, you saw these teams really trying to attack points of weaknesses that they know that they have within their defense. The Packers, they switched defensive coordinators during this offseason. They weren't happy with what they got out of their defense, and then they showed that in the draft. They went and got a bunch of safeties, cornerbacks. I mean, the Lions lost the NFC Championship game because they could not defend the pass, and they went and drafted 2 cornerbacks with their top 2 picks. I mean, these teams are trying to impact, that one part of their defense that they feel like is lacking. So you like that, when you see that, you like that if you're a fan of that team. I like the Vikings as a sleeper, really tough defense. They made some good moves in the offseason, but honestly, it really comes down to me. Like, they made moves to really to be specifically meant for their defensive coordinator. Flores is an awesome defensive coordinator. He showed that last year. He wants to blitz. He wants to make a quarterback uncomfortable. And they Bruja, get out of my head. He wants to make a quarterback uncomfortable, and that can impact the Bears, especially with a rookie quarterback. So that's a team that stands out to me that could get after the passer, and they could have a much better defense than people expect this year. But all these teams are making moves to impact their defense. So it's tough to say who's gonna be this or that, but they know what's wrong with them, and they're trying to fix it. So that's something to be concerned about if you're in this division, because those two teams were in the playoffs, the Packers and the Lions, and they're trying to get better at positions of weakness.
Yeah, the NFC North took the NFC North outside of the Bears took 5 cornerbacks and 4 safeties. So these guys clearly stacked up on defensive backs. The Packers took 3 safeties and 2 corners, 5 players total. So, and I don't know that it was a Caleb Williams or Roman Dunze thing. I do think that the NFC North, all these other teams are aware that there's a lot of talent, a wide receiver that you need to cover here on every roster. Honestly, the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions. Amon-Ra just got that contract. Justin Jefferson's about to probably break the record for a contract for a wide receiver. So, as good as the Bears secondary is, I think these other guys, the Packers, Lions, and Vikings, realize that they got to get better. And the Vikings actually signed a player, Kyrie Jackson, I really, really, really like. He's a really good player. And like Dustin said, Detroit with their first 2 picks realized, I was it really worries me that Detroit was able to identify their biggest issue was their secondary. That they drafted 2 players in the secondary with the first 2 picks, and I think they really improved. And anytime the Bears, we played the Lions really well, but Justin Fields averaged 130 yards a game rushing against the Lions. He didn't really pass the ball against them for us to win that game last year. So I'm concerned about their secondary now. They actually, with Brian Branch, and they went out and got another player from Alabama this year. So I am concerned that all the secondaries in the NFC North improved, and it's going to be a problem for Caleb Williams. So unfortunately, he doesn't have to play hero ball because of the system they've built around him. But like Dustin said, the NFC North just got a whole lot better on defense.
Can't hear you, Coop. Shit.
What's up, Dustin?
What's up, man? Yeah, they got a whole lot better. Terrion Arnold, I thought, was a bit of a reach, man. A lot of people were on him, but he can't. I was talking about it earlier. The zone coverage, he can't play man coverage very much, not very well. Nick Saban ran a lot more zone coverage than he's ever run this past year with those cornerbacks, Kool-Aid and Terrion Arnold, because he didn't believe that they could play man to man successfully. So that's something they're going to need. And I don't know if Terrion Arnold brings that to that team. So I'm hoping that's a bust.
Branch was a really good player, though, but he can't seem to stay healthy. Still can't hear you, Matt.
And Brandon, I just want to go back at you. Tremaine Edmonds was hurt a lot of last year. So asking him to give his money to TJ Edwards, he started to perform, man. Once he started getting healthy, once he was getting past those injuries, I think Tremaine Edmonds is in for a big season, man. Just watch and see.
I hope.
I think so. He started to turn it on after he got healthy.
Dustin, you're the host. So, Dustin, let me ask you this. While Matt's out, who do you have? I want to hear your 1 through 5 rankings on the defensive side of the football.
On the defensive side of the football, on the Bears?
No, I want to hear your rankings in the NFL, 1 through 5.
Oh, I mean,
Can I give you mine?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I think Browns, Ravens, Jets, 49ers, Chiefs. That's my 1 through 5.
I like the Niners a lot. I like the Chiefs a lot. I'd put them in the top 5, and they were in the top 5 last year. So were the Browns, and so were the Ravens. I think those are 4 safe bets. But
So are
I
the
think,
Jets. Jets were
huh?
top 5.
But I think the Steelers, man. I think the Steelers this year might be ready to take a step into that top 5.
Well, yeah, the acquisition of Patrick Queen was huge.
Yeah,
Huge for
man.
that team.
Yeah, and they drafted Peyton Wilson.
Yeah.
So their
And
linebacker
and
core
and
is
Joey Porter's just one more year in.
yeah, man. Peyton Wilson and Queen together, that's going to make a big difference. And a healthy TJ Watt, and Minka Fitzpatrick is a damn beast, So I mean, then you can put him anywhere. And Mike Tomlin's a great defensive coach, so I could see
So
the
you have
Steelers
you
sneaking
have the
into the
Steelers
top.
in there. You have the Jets out and the Steelers in.
I hate the Jets. I don't want to talk about the Jets. I don't want to talk about the ifers. I don't know, man. Like I just can't stand that team. I can't stand what they're doing. I can't stand what they've put together. And I wish them nothing but failure.
That defense was good though, man. It was good.
No, for sure it was. And Robert Saleh is a good defensive coach. He's not a good
Because
head coach. He's a good defensive coach. That's for sure.
All right.
Hey,
yeah, you're back.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what happened there, but something went wrong here. Something flickered in my place, and then everything went out, and then my laptop went out, and then I had to go read back, put it back on. I'm like, oh my.
you're a true pro, man. You're
So thank you guys for hanging in there for a second. Guys, before we as we're sitting here talking about the Bears' top 5 defense,
cool. Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, man.
Don't let this show end without talking about the punter. You brought up the punter. We got to talk about him. Don't let it end without us talking about this punter, please.
Yeah, let's get to that here in a second. I'm going to put up this graphic really quick about the quarterbacks in our division, guys. So let's see. Can you guys see that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is what we have as the rankings right now. You got Caleb as number 1, Jared Goff 2, Jordan Love 3, and number 4, J.J. McCarthy. Now, I think we could all agree J.J. McCarthy's number 4 because I think that's the one that's the unknown. I have no idea what this guy's going to do. The only thing I know is he's going to a really good coaching staff. And other than that, I don't know how he's going to be in the NFL. But the other 3 is very debatable.
Whose rankings are these?
This is from our guy Trax has created everything. So he's got Caleb at number 1. I think Jared Goff is still number 1 with everything that he did with Detroit last year. I think it's going to be very hard for me not to say him number 1. What about you?
I mean,
I have Jordan Love at number 1.
I would put Goff number 1, Love 2, Caleb 3, and McCarthy off this list altogether. Sam Darnold there if you want. McCarthy is ass. I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, and I don't think he should be sharing any space with Jared Goff or Caleb Williams or Jordan Love. But I just think Caleb Williams has to prove some stuff here. I mean, I would love to see that be the list and that ranking at the end of this season. But we've seen Jared Goff take his team to some NFC championships and some Super Bowls, and we saw him perform in the playoffs last year really well. There's no way I put Jordan Love over him or Caleb Williams over him at this point, regardless of my Bears fandom. It's Goff, it's Love, it's Caleb, and then that's it.
So Jared Goff last year had 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Jordan Love had 4,200 yards and 32 touchdowns. Jordan Love was a first-year starter on a team that's clearly improving, a lot of young talent. They were like the whole team. Hopefully what happens for the Bears this year is what happened for the Packers last year. A lot of new guys just kind of coming together. Jaden Reed had a really good season. We know Romeo Dobbs, but then Tavion Wicks had a really good season as well. I do think Jordan Love with one more year of experience, I do think Jordan Love's better than Jared Goff this year. I'm not a huge Jared Goff fan. I know he gets the numbers. I know, but when it matters and when he's on the road and when he's in weather, he's not a good quarterback.
I hate Jared Goff. I don't think he's a good quarterback, but I mean his numbers keep proving me wrong, and his success keeps proving me wrong. So at this point,
he had the yards. Jordan Love did actually throw more touchdowns than Jared Goff did last year, which I'll take touchdowns. I'll take touchdowns over yards all day.
Jared Goff got to the NFC Championship. I mean, I just think just from what happened last year, what we saw, it's Goff number one right now in the division, and hopefully
but
he's
Dustin,
playing.
you've made this argument before. The Lions imploded on themselves in the NFC Championship, and the Packers made it to the NFC Champion or the NFC. They made it past the divisional round with a first-year quarterback, a
They didn't make
first-year
it
starter.
to the divisional round, yes, and they kind of exploded and pissed on themselves too. So I mean, both teams did that, and Jordan Love threw the pick to end the game. So
Which I think is okay for a guy who played for his first year ever in the NFL. Like I think the moment was probably a little bit.
He did go into Dallas and beat the Cowboys. I mean, that is pretty
He
impressive.
smoked the Cowboys. I think they won like 42-10. I mean,
if I was picking a quarterback between those two right now, I'd pick Jordan Love, no doubt.
It's an interesting debate because I listen. I put Jared Goff number one, but I put Jordan Love a close second. I think to what your point, I don't think there's a right or wrong for me in Jared Goff or Jordan Love because I think they're going to be the two best quarterbacks in the division this year. In the future, I still think Caleb Williams' ceiling is so high that he's eventually going to be there. But I think it's going to take some time for him to adjust, even though he's got all the weapons and everything around him that we all like right now. But when it comes to our division alone, I think you see some of those characteristics in Jordan Love and how he can take over a game with all those young wide receivers.
And I don't think there's a thing that a lot of NFC North fans kind of look past is Aaron Jones is a phenomenal running back. He is. He's been really impactful. He's murdered the Bears for the last few years, but he didn't play for 7 weeks last year. Josh Jacobs is a really, really good player. And if the Packers actually establish somewhat of a run game, which they didn't have last year, let's be honest, when Jones was injured, it was bad there. Does Jordan Love improve?
Josh Jacobs isn't better than Aaron Jones.
But is he healthier?
That's a good question too.
Can
he play more than 8 weeks? You know what I mean?
For sure. No, yeah. I mean, look, if you're talking about that list, which quarterback am I taking right now? I'm taking Caleb Williams because, like you said, Coop, the future is what you're looking at. If you're talking about, if you're drafting between those four, it's Caleb, it's Jordan Love, and then it's
McCarthy.
I'm not taking McCarthy.
He's number 1 5 years from now, right?
Yeah, no,
it's going to be interesting, though. I can't wait to see how he plays because I do think he went into a really good situation with the Vikings. So whether we want to say he's a second-round pick or a third-round pick, he's got a great offensive-minded head coach that he's going to learn under. So it's going to be fun to watch him and see how that team does. And I'm looking at our chats right now, guys. I see that Illinois Jones, thank you for chiming in, man. How pissed are the Lions that Swift is back in the NFC North? I don't think the Lions care, man. I think the Lions went out and they realized that we got Montgomery and we got probably one of the fastest guys in the draft last year with Gibbs. And those two together are phenomenal. Even though Swift's a very good player, I think they like their upgrade of what to them they upgraded and it looked like it last year.
And let's be honest, when Montgomery's contract ends, they're going to let him walk too. The Lions don't give big contracts to running backs. They just don't. Gibbs will become the starter once Montgomery's gone. And once Gibbs' rookie contract's up, they probably move on from Gibbs. They don't do that. That's just the Lions' history is just don't sign running backs to big contracts. That's what they do.
I'm more upset that Aaron Jones stayed in the division.
Oh, I know. I was hoping he kills us, man. I was hoping he was going to go somewhere. You know what? But he's going to the Vikings, man. He gets to play the Packers twice a year, man. There's going to be a little chip on his shoulder.
Oh yeah, there is, and he's a bear killer too. He just goes off on us every time we play him. He's got that speed to get on the edge. So I was more upset about that. But yeah, I mean, nobody really pays running backs big contracts anymore. I mean, we saw a little bit of an influx this past offseason, but those are for really special guys. So maybe Jahmyr Gibbs is that, but
I think he's a special player. Hey guys, we have over 100 people watching right now, man. So thank you all so much for watching tonight. This is awesome on the Chicago Sports Podcast, sponsors of the Madhouse. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. I'm looking at Dobbsy's 34 comment right now. The unspoken key on the Bears offense is, can our OC actually call a game? I think he can. At least hey, you know what? Here's the thing. At least we got somebody in here with experience this year. At least we got somebody with experience that has called offensive plays before at a very high level instead of bringing first-time coordinators in. So I'm excited about that part alone.
And the biggest key with Waldron is that it's the exact opposite of Getsy. Getsy has his system, and you need to fit yourself into my system. Waldron is going to see the players he has, and he's done it on multiple occasions throughout his time coaching offenses. He will adapt to the quarterback, to the receivers, to the players that are in there to draw up the best system possible for the players versus trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dustin. He's played a lot of 11-man, 12-man. I think he's going to have to play some 10-man this year. There's no doubt about it. You have three
Yeah.
really solid receivers. He's going to have to build this offense around Adunze, Allen, and Moore being on the field at the same time, right? I don't want to see DJ Moore, Keenan Allen come off in order for Adunze to be on the field. That can't be a thing. The Bears have something. They've built something that I don't know that any other team in the NFL has. This is going to put every defense in the NFL. It's going to limit their play calling, right? They have three receivers that you have to concern yourself with. You almost have to double each one of these guys. And I do believe that Odunze is going to be that kind of player. And then you still have Komet. Who, if you want to put Komet in the flat, you want to like some crow routes, you want to put Komet in short yardage. A linebacker is gonna have to play a corner against the Bears if they play 10-man. They have to play 10-man. I like Everett and I do like Komet, but I don't want to see those two guys on the field at the same time too much. I don't want to see Swift on the field in passing downs too much. I want to see Adunze, Allen, and Moore on the field a lot because the thing that pulls us put together here makes the Bears different from everybody else in the NFL. Imagine what you're going to have to do to defend these three guys. It's going to be almost impossible. And I do think while we're talking about the Bears being a top 5 defense, like Dustin said, if the Bears finish anywhere between 10 and 15 on defense, it's okay because I think they've built an offense that's good enough to win football games. And I do still think the defense is good enough to, probably, let's say, 17 to 21 points. If they can hold teams to that, this Bears offense is going to be frightening. If I'm a defensive coordinator who's about to game plan for this Bears offense, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, right? I mean, what are you going to do? There's so many weapons on this team. Ryan Poles has put together something that I haven't seen as in the Bears organization, but not just that. I don't know if I've seen this in the NFL. Like, if Rome Odunze plays like the 9th overall pick in the draft, this is going to be scary. Scary. I don't know what you're going to do.
You just saw last year the Seahawks take Jackson Smith and Jigba at like number 11, I believe, or number 12, right?
Yeah, and Lockett's
Waldron,
not Keenan Allen.
and they had Lockett and DK Metcalf, right? And Waldron started to just as Jackson Smith and Jigba started to come along, he started to adjust to those 3 wide receiver sets. And my main point again is this guy is going, whether the game dictates it in the moment, how the players are playing throughout the year, he's going to adjust to what's happening. And if it needs to be 2 tight ends, it's 2 tight ends. If it needs to be 3, whatever it needs to be, I have confidence that he's going to put the Bears in the right formations with the right play calls to score some damn points.
I agree with that. And the running back too for Seattle last year, man, I love that pick, man. He was a stud for them. So that's why I'm excited to see what he brings to our offense now with Swift in our backfield. And we got a lot of time to talk about that too, guys, because we're going to be talking a lot about the Bears and their offense and how they're going to run, especially as we roll on here, as we get into training camps and as we get into the summertime. Before we end today, and Dustin, and we had some people bring it up too, thanks to everybody in the chats about our punter. We could not have the show and not talk about the punter, man, Taylor, because first off, I was watching some of the videos of this. I remember him from last year. Iowa, they couldn't score. Their offense was so bad last year. So they punted a lot. And I remember watching some of this kid in some of his games and then looking at some of the highlight films. I'm like, man, is a team really in this draft going to take him in the 4th or 5th or 6th round? Or is he just going to be undrafted like everybody else? Because he's pretty damn impressive from all the different videos that I've watched. And sure enough, here the Bears are number 4, which we need a new punter. I think that was clearly on our list when it comes to special teams. I didn't love the way our special teams played last year. And you watch the video of this kid, and he is unbelievable, and he could really pin you back. And I think we got some excitement for that because if he can do that, the sky's the limit on everything we've talked about today with our defense is going to put that on the board on our radar as well.
Yeah, well, what I would like to say about this is, just when you're taken aback by a team, it felt very Bearsy. like the whole beginning of the draft felt like really different, really fresh. Like we got our guys. We took the guys that we expected versus taking a Shea McClellan just out of the blue.
Don't say that name again.
I'm sorry, it won't happen again. But
cut you off, man.
But it felt very Bearsy, and my reaction to it was like, why are we taking a punter in the 4th round? But then everybody else's reaction is like, well, punters are people too, and you need punters. Punters are a big part of the game. And I mean, obviously it's reductive to make the conversation about that, because we all know, I'm not going to discount the fact that a punter needs to be on the field at some points for a team, right? But if you start thinking about pinning the ball inside the 20, what does the team have to do to have a punter that's pinning the ball inside the 20 often? They got to stall out at the 40. They're not moving the ball downfield. They're not having a good possession. Those pin downs are coming between that 35 and 50-yard line, So you maybe had a 1 first down and then you're out after 3 more downs, right? You stalled out. So if you look at those punters that are pinning it within the 20, they're all on bad teams, guys. Go look at the stats. And if you look at the top 15 punters overall, just net yards, if you touchbacks, it counts for all of it, right? The top 15 guys. Cooper, how many guys do you think within those top 15 punters last year in the NFL were on playoff teams?
Not many. Was it
2?
Yeah.
2.
I was like, there's only a couple I was going to say.
Tampa's punter and Cleveland.
Which he was very good. That was the first guy I was going to say was for Tampa.
So, I mean, like, yeah, it's cool, man, like to have a good punter, but it doesn't mean success for your team. Now, we're bringing up the kickoff stuff. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, right? We're going to have to
Bruja
see.
7 saying right there, yeah, it's all about
exactly, right? And I'll give you that. And I'll always give Poles the benefit of the doubt because he's doing good things for this team, and I'll trust his process. But I personally felt like there were better options with your last of 4 picks at the time to use that pick on than a punter. And just it doesn't mean you're going to have a successful team if you have. It generally means the opposite. You're a pretty bad team if you have a really good punter. We'll see what happens. Them trading back up into the 5th to get Austin Booker, who's the guy I wanted with that pick in the first place, really made me feel better about it. But I just didn't feel like they had the luxury to do it at the time.
Yeah, I'm going to go pros and cons here. So Pat McAfee was talking about.
Hold on. Trent Gill was not terrible. He was number 16 in the league last year, just kind of middle of the road. That's another thing, right? Like they're replacing a punter who was middling. Sorry, Brandon.
No, it's all right. Pat McAfee was talking about how there's multiple punts, and I don't know this. I've never been a kicker in football, but there are multiple punts in which a player can utilize. There's multiple styles of punting, and I guess this kid Taylor is really good at punting the ball to literally stick. That's what McAfee was talking about. He can kind of stick the ball where it is. It doesn't have too much bounce or roll. It kind of stays exactly where he punts it. So I'm happy to hear it. He's the crocodile punter, right? The kid from Australia. But I agree with Dustin, and I want to say this. What Caleb Williams texted him was just a joke. But you got to hope it comes to fruition, right? Caleb Williams
was it a joke, though?
he texted him, you're not going to punt very often.
Yeah.
And my problem with drafting a punter in the 4th round is this is a player who you almost never want to be on the field, right? You don't want this guy on the field at all, ever, right? Like, I think there was a season 2022, the Ravens had gone it was something ridiculous, like 36 possessions in a row without utilizing a punter. And I'm hoping that's the way the Bears season is going to go, right? So you don't want this guy in the field. So to invest a 4th overall pick in a guy that you don't want on the field is probably not that smart. And then in aid to that as well, he was the only punter taken in the draft. So you have to ask yourself, that forces you to ask yourself, is he still there when the draft is over, right? Because the Bears only had 4 picks going into the draft. They acquired a 5th. But is Taylor still there when the draft's over? And can you just sign this kid to a free agent deal, right? Like, I don't know.
Or even trade back into the 6th round to get him.
And I that's something. I forget who it was. Somebody said that the Bears when I was on the other podcast I was with Trax, the guy said that Adam Mason said that he believes the Bears did try to trade a fourth round back in a fifth and a sixth, trade that fourth pick for a fifth and a sixth. Is that like how true can that be? What team wouldn't offer the Bears a fifth and a sixth round pick for their fourth? I mean, that had to be plausible, right? So the kid's a good player. It's pretty obvious. McAfee loves the kid. He was his favorite player in the draft. I have no doubt he's going to make an impact. You know, Mike said on Monday night, can he add 10 yards to each punt? Like I would say I think that's a pretty big number. I would think like 6 to 8 yards is probably good for when you're looking at special teams and how many yards he adds to each possession. But the guy's not going to be on the field very often if what you're putting together comes to fruition, right? Like the Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. If these guys do what you expect them to do, they're going to score. And you're not going to utilize the punter as much as any other position literally on the team, right? There's no other position on the team that's going to be less relevant than the punter on a good offense. Like Dustin just said, 2 guys were on playoff teams, right? So you don't want the punter to be on the field. And then again, is he a player that might have slipped to you beyond the draft? Maybe. No other punter was taken. Is he so special that he for sure would have been taken? I'm going to say this, guys. We had David Kaplan on the show. I love Cap. And he said, there's no way this guy makes it past the 4th round. I don't know that I agree with that. I really don't. I highly, highly doubt it. I think, like Dustin said, maybe 6th round. Maybe
that's kind of where I was thinking too. I think maybe late 5th, early 6th. But I do think he was going to get drafted. I don't think he was going to make it through not being a free agent. Not with the video that I was watching, everything that people were posting on Twitter.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player.
So it's gonna be fun to watch. I think everything that we're talking about here with the Bears guys, I think a lot of us are going to be so excited to watch him come out to the field for the first time just to see what he does. And then if he's a bust, then we're just like, okay, we wasted this on the 4th.
We'll see him in the Hall of Fame.
We'll see, guys. So, well, thank you guys so much for watching tonight on the Chicago Sports Podcast, the Monsters of the Madhouse. Want to thank you guys for in the chat. We can't do the show without you guys. And to everybody else, like Serendipity Ice Cream, you guys can check them out as they're gearing up here, spring into summertime. That's in Northwest Indiana, 120 North Griffin Boulevard. And also TC's World of Wonders. They've been with us for a long, long time, where you want to go get your Chicago sports jerseys, memorabilia. You can check them out, TC's World of Wonders.com. Underdog Fantasy. You guys, they've been with us, and this is a time too, is we got the NBA playoffs going on, NHL playoffs. I've been watching every single night here this week. So you can go ahead, place your bets, and get more information at underdogfantasy.com. And guys, really quickly before we head out tonight, top 5 defense in the NFL for the Bears, yes or no? Dustin, will they be a top 5 defense?
No, but I don't think they need to be. I think you can be in that 10 to 15 range, and if the offense does what we expect it to do, you're still a playoff team. So, I mean, baby steps. We're getting there.
No, I have Browns, Ravens, Jets, Niners, Chiefs. I don't think they come even close to any of those defenses. I think they finish somewhere between 11 and 14, and like Dustin said, that's good enough. The way this offense is built, I mean, the Bears have finally done something different from what we've watched for so many years. The offense will be good enough for the defense to just to literally just be good enough, right? Like, I think if they allow anywhere between 17 to 21 points a game, the Bears will still win.
I'm gonna go.
You gonna do it?
I'm gonna say top 5. I'm going top 5. Top 5. We're going top 5, man. We're going top 5. I do. Here's what I think is going to happen, guys. I do think they're going to get a player. I think in the deadline cut coming up June 1st, I think they're going to find somebody that's going to help out the defensive line. So,
Matt, who's your top 5?
My top 5. I think the Chiefs. I think the Browns, Chiefs. I think you can go either one there. Now the Chiefs did lose Snead, so I think they always find ways to replace the players they lose. But I like what the Browns still, I think, coming back healthy, they're going to be very tough. I like the Ravens.
The Myles Garrett effect.
Anytime you got Myles Garrett and you got and then you got Ward in the back. So they got so many playmakers on that team with probably the best defensive coach in football. So I'm going to put the Browns too. I'm going to have the Ravens in there, and I'm also going to put the 49ers. I think the 49ers, don't sleep on the Texans either. I think the Texans defense is with Danielle Hunter going there now, another year with their linebacker from last year.
Well, we still have like a minute left. Trax asked me, who is the best defensive coordinator in the NFC North?
NFC North. I'm going to say Brian Flores, the Vikings.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to call Eberflus the defensive coordinator when he's the head coach. It makes it hard. It's like you're trying to juggle all these things at once. I mean, are you just gonna not focus on the rest of the team and just focus on defense? If so, then maybe Flus could be. But yeah, I think Brian Flores is the best defensive head coach, defensive coordinator in the NFC North.
I thought he gave us the most problems last year. I thought when we played against them, I thought when we were talking about Justin Fields and certain times that we thought he was confused throughout the year, I thought when they played them, he looked that way. And I think a lot of it was because Flores and the players he has. And I think the Vikings actually have a pretty good defense. So that's a good debate, though. That's a good question. And it's going to be fun to watch and how this plays out, guys. So we're
one
excited.
point I did make, Coop, when you were describing the Browns, you know, Montez Sweat is that Myles Garrett, right? And Matt Eberflus is that defensive head coach. I mean, you know, now the Browns don't have a defensive head coach. I mean, he's more of an offensive play caller from his past, but he's adjusted to what his team does well. But a lot of the thing, and you know, playmakers at every position, you know, Edmonds, Edwards, Brisker, Gordon, Stevenson, I think is going to take a huge leap this year. Jalen Johnson, we might have the two best cornerbacks on the same team in the league. So a lot of the things you were saying about the Browns kind of, you know, resonated with me thinking about the Bears. So there's a case to be made for what we're discussing here. I just think it might take maybe another year, a couple more additions, but I thought of the Bears when you were describing that Browns team when we were talking about the number one defense last year.
But I think we're all going to agree what the Bears are going to do with their first round pick next season, and that's edge.
Yeah, if they don't pick one up this year, then especially next year in a defensive draft. So. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching Monsters of the Madhouse, Chicago Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You guys can watch this show. Heck, I'll be watching it probably tomorrow morning. I got to be driving. I'll be driving to Nashville tomorrow, so I know I'll be watching and listening to some other shows.
Matt likes to watch himself.
What's it? I love it. We all love it. No, just kidding, guys.
Matt, pleasure. Always a pleasure, man.
No, I love doing it, guys. Brandon, it's always good to see you, man. I love it, man. I love being on the shows with you, man. You always bring such passion with you, so it's always so much fun to be with you. Happy belated birthday, or early birthday, I should say.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Dustin, first time being on the show with you, man. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Great job. Thank you for all your awesome questions and awesome thoughts. And I thought we had a really good conversation about this Bears defense. And yeah, great job, Brandon. Happy birthday, bud.
Man. Have a good one, man. And we'll check in with you next week to see how it was. So you guys have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching tonight.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
Yeah, do those shots, man, while you're watching playoff basketball. Well, thank you guys so much for watching tonight, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we will talk to you soon.